So now what the options are, as we discussed, options help us to cover our risk. We discussed an example in case where you have imported a consignment from a supplier in US for $1 million, and you have a view that the dollar will be appreciating, rupee will be depreciating. That will mean that for the same $1 million you will need to shell out more Indian rupees if that happens. Now, obviously, in a business, you and I would always like to ensure that we minimize our risk, we remove the uncertainty, and we have seen as to how by taking a forward contract, you could cover your risk in case if the dollar was to appreciate and rupee was to depreciate. In the same example, we also understood that whereas forward contract will help you to cover your risk for sure in case if your view about the movement in the currency comes out to be true. But if your view comes out to be the other way around, in that case, if you take a forward contract, you might lose on the opposite view. Meaning what? कहने का मतलब क्या है? कहने का मतलब ये है कि आपको लगा कि रुपी डेप्रीशिएट होगा, डॉलर एप्रीशिएट होगा, और इसलिए आपने फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइन किया और 1 लाख मिलियन डॉलर के लिए आपने फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइन किया. लेकिन अगर कॉन्ट्ररी टू योर व्यू, अगर ये रुपी एप्रीशिएट होता है और डॉलर अगर डेप्रीशिएट होता है तो और आपने फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट लिया हुआ है, तो प्लीज़ रिमेंबर फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का मतलब क्या है? फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का मतलब है बोथ द पार्टीज टू अ फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट हैव अ राइट एंड हैव एन ऑब्लिगेशन. सो द बैंक हैज़ अ राइट to sell you $1 million. Bank has an obligation to sell you $1 million and has a right to receive from you 85 rupees per dollar. Likewise, you have a right to purchase from the bank $1 million, and you also have an obligation to pay 85 rupees per dollar for which you have signed the forward contract. बट अगर ये जो आपने व्यू लिया वो व्यू उल्टा हो गया, यानी कि रुपी डेप्रीशिएट होने के बजाय एप्रीशिएट हो गया, तो इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? उसका मतलब ये हुआ कि आपने जो फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट साइन किया उसका कुछ मतलब निकला नहीं, और आपको वो फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट जल्दी से जल्दी कैंसिल करना पड़ेगा. क्यों कैंसिल करना पड़ेगा? क्योंकि अगर आपने वो फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट नहीं कैंसिल किया तो उस फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट के हिसाब से आपको 2 महीने के बाद, even if the rupee dollar rate has come down to 80 rupees, so rupee has appreciated, and the rupee dollar exchange rate has become 80 rupees to a dollar. If you don't cancel that forward contract, then you will have to compulsorily pay 85 rupees to the bank for purchasing those $1 million, and that is the risk that you have in case of the forward contract. Now, how do you take care of this risk? Now, this risk can be taken care of by purchasing an option. So, what is an option? As we discussed little while ago, option का मतलब क्या है? Option का मतलब ये है you have a right but you have no obligation. So, let's say for example, for the same case that we were discussing, you have imported a consignment from America of $1 million, और 2 महीने के बाद आपको $1 million का पेमेंट करना है, तो और आपको लगता है कि rupee is going to depreciate and the dollar is going to appreciate, so you want to cover your risk. So what will you do? You will buy an option, and what option will you buy? You will buy an option to purchase 1 million euros at the given rate, and let's say that rate today is 83 rupees per dollar or 84 rupees per dollar. So obviously when you will buy the option, and this is known as call option. So when you will buy the call option, you will have to pay to the seller of the option a premium which is known as option premium. And why do you have to pay this premium to the option seller? Because the option seller is taking the risk of making the dollars available to you 2 months down the line, to taking the risk of making $1 million available to you at the rate of 84 rupees per dollar, irrespective of what happens 2 months down the line to the dollar and rupee exchange rate. Now, you have purchased this option, and this is known as call option. So when you purchase an option where you have a right to purchase, it is known as call option. And when you purchase an option where you have a right to sell, it is known as put option. So there are two kinds of options, call option and put option. एंड हियर वी आर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट द कॉल ऑप्शन. तो आपने क्या किया, आपको $1 मिलियन का 2 महीने के बाद में पेमेंट करना है. तो आपने क्या किया, आपने $1 मिलियन का ऑप्शन परचेज किया, कॉल ऑप्शन परचेज किया. एंड दैट मीन्स व्हाट, दैट मीन्स यू हैव अ राइट टू परचेज फ्रॉम द सेलर ऑफ द ऑप्शन $1 million 2 months down the line at the rate of 84 rupees per dollar. Now, as you thought, the rupee depreciated and dollar appreciated. सो 2 महीने के बाद जब आपको वो पेमेंट की डेट आई, उस समय तक रुपी और डॉलर की जो रेट थी वो 87 हो गई. तो 87 हो गई, इसका मतलब क्या हो गया, दैट मीन्स इफ यू वुड नॉट हैव टेकन दिस कॉल ऑप्शन, you would have had to pay 87 rupees per dollar for making this payment of $1 million. And therefore, you saved yourself because of this call option. Now, contrary to your view, the rupee dollar exchange rate worked the other way. क्या मतलब है कहने का मतलब यह है कि आपने सोचा था कि डॉलर एप्रिशिएट होगा, रुपी डेप्रिशिएट होगा, उसके बजाय डॉलर डेप्रिशिएट हो गया और रुपी एप्रिशिएट हो गया. इसका मतलब क्या है, इसका मतलब यह है कि जब आपको पेमेंट करने की डेट आई 2 महीने के बाद, उस समय रुपी डॉलर की जो एक्सचेंज रेट थी वो 80 रुपीज़ की हो गई. यानी कि on the due date of the remittance, the dollar was available at 80 rupees per dollar against the call option rate of 84 rupees at which you have purchased the call option. Now what you have to do, you have a call option at the rate of rupees 84. So what you have to do, remember, you have to do nothing. And why you have to do nothing? And that is because what you bought was an option. एंड इसका मतलब क्या है, जब आप ऑप्शन खरीदते हो तो आपको राइट है, ऑब्लिगेशन नहीं है. यानी कि जिस दिन वो कॉल ऑप्शन एक्सपायर होगा, अगर उस दिन तक आपने उस ऑप्शन को एक्सरसाइज नहीं किया तो वो ऑप्शन ऑटोमेटिकली एक्सपायर हो जाएगा और आपको कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं है. दैट मीन्स द रिस्क दैट यू हैड इन केस ऑफ द फॉरवर्ड कॉन्ट्रैक्ट of being forced to purchase the dollar at the forward contract rate, in case if you forgot to cancel or the reverse that forward contract, that risk is not applicable in case of the options. We will discuss more about it, of the call option and also of the put option, but this is just to give you a flavor as to how the options work to the advantage of the holder of the option. But remember, at the same time, the options got to be used judiciously. Because derivatives are tools for risk management. And in case if the derivatives are used with no care and recklessly, carelessly, and without any homework, then the same derivatives can prove to be the weapons of mass destruction, as once was mentioned by none other than Warren Buffett. And that is what we have to remember. While on the topic, I can also mention that there used to be a bank called Barings Bank, and this Barings Bank was a more than 100-year-old bank. I remember because of a rogue trader called Nick Leeson, who was the trader for this bank, he kept on making wrong bids to cover his risk for the whole night, and by the time the dawn happened, the bank had already become bankrupt. And this is the story of 20 years back, and the Barings Bank that was in existence for more than 100 years, remember, got wiped off in one single day, and that is because of improper use of the derivatives.